Well, this past Sunday really was a special Sunday in the life of our church. We celebrated our 25th anniversary of making fully devoted followers of Christ. In this video, we're going to talk about and celebrate where the Lord has brought us and talk about where He's leading us coming up.
Awesome. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jonathan Conrad. I wanted to, we're going to break things up this week. So we figured after 25 years, Matt could take a sermon off and we can do an interview with Matt and Terry and really talk about, we want to celebrate. So today, I mean, you guys, I'm sure would agree, today is worth celebrating. 25 years at Canopy Roads, that's right. So one of the things we wanted to do was we're going to go through and just talk a little bit with Matt and Terry about the history of the church, about some of the challenges and some of the struggles and some of the great things that God has done, and then what the future looks like. That's really what we're going to do today. So with that, you guys, I'm sure you know Matt and Terry, but this is Senior Pastor Matt Hall and his wife Terry Hall. These guys have been with us since day one at Canopy Roads. So really awesome to have them up here. Thanks guys for doing this. And we're going to go through a few questions. So first, let's start with just kind of how did this get started? Tell us the history. What was the birth of Canopy Roads?
So I was serving in a new church plant in Montgomery for 2 years and just felt like, God was leading me to go start a church. So I started looking around, trying to find a place, and one of my seminary professors was serving as an interim pastor at a small church in Tallahassee that wanted to basically kind of start all over, relocate. They had inherited some money from their founding family, and so we started communicating and then exchanged emails and phone calls, and filled out they sent me a long questionnaire to fill out. And I filled it out. Long questionnaire, multiple pages. I felt like I was doing a seminary term paper. And so I filled it out and sent it back to them, and they had filled out the survey based on what they felt like they wanted in a pastor. And they said it was difficult to tell the difference between my answers and theirs. So they felt like, okay, maybe this is God leading this direction. So they felt like that's what they were doing, that God was doing. And there was a small church, Northside Baptist Church. They were running about 40 to 45 in worship and 25 in Sunday school. And they'd been here 27 years. And they just had never really grown. And they were kind of downtown near Lafayette Park, if you guys know where it is, off of Gadsden Street there. And I just began to pray about it and think maybe this probably isn't what God wanted. I'm just not feeling it. And Terry wouldn't let me forget about it. She said, we're in this Experiencing God class, and if you see God at work, and obviously there's some God working here with the questionnaire thing. So we were going to my farm in Alabama for the weekend. We were in Montgomery at the time. It was about an hour away, and I had told the chairman of the search team that I'd be there. So I gave him the farm phone number, and he said he wanted to call me in the weekend. So I was there, and I'd totally forgotten about that. And then during the course of the weekend, I felt like, I need to go call Kelly and tell him that this is just not God. God doesn't want me to do this. So,
and he told me that's what he was getting ready to do.
I went back to my parents' bedroom. I reached to pick up the phone rang, and I picked up and said, hello. It was Kelly Burke calling me when I was reaching for the phone to call him. I was so freaked out by that. I said, okay, God, I'm listening now, so then we came down here for a visit. And one of the things that was troubling about the start of the church was, the original church, was they started over racism. Because they didn't want to worship with different ethnicities at First Baptist downtown. So they started their own little church so that they could be all white. And that was a problem for me.
We knew it was a part of the history.
We knew it was a part of the history. And so when I came down here, I had a meeting with the church, all the church together on a Saturday night, and said, we asked each other questions. And I said, if you want me to come, this church has to be for all people. And I just feel like God has laid on my heart to reach people who are not comfortable coming to church, people who are unchurched, that's what we call them. And so it has to be anybody who walks through the doors. So they said, yeah, we'll do that. Well, I'll let Terry tell the story about the next day.
So the next morning was his sermon in view of a call, and the service had started, and one of the original members of Northside, Cheryl Bounds, had been inviting one of her co-workers to church for a long time. Well, this was the Sunday that co-worker came to church, and she was actually African American, and she came with her 2 children. And we saw them come in through the back doors of the church, and the matriarch of the church, Miss Marilyn Newton, got up, walked to the back of the church, took the hands of those 2 little children, and walked them up front, and took them back behind the altar, which is where the children's division was in the church at that time. And it was so much like God said, okay, put up or shut up. I'm cutting out. And it was a beautiful moment. Just a confirmation that, yes, this is my plan.
Yeah, we knew right then this is God's will. So, yeah. So then we began the process of finding a place and meeting, and God led us to Hawks Rise Elementary, where we started off there.
So that's amazing. I actually didn't know that story either. Wow, that's pretty amazing. And we still have a small group room named after the Newtons,
Yep.
right?
Yep,
So
yep.
the Newtons were awesome.
Yep.
So, Terry, I think you it's your fault that Matt came here, right?
Partly.
That's right.
You wouldn't let me forget, yeah.
Because that was going to be one of my questions is what did you think when Matt said, hey, I think we're going to go to Tallahassee? But it sounds like it was the other way around. It was like, Matt, we're going to Tallahassee.
Well, he told me what he was interested in doing, what he felt like God was leading him to do. And it was to invest in a church that was willing to make changes and to be different and to be the church that God wanted them to do and to be. And his desire, the desire that God had laid on his heart, was to find a church where he could invest himself. Both of us are very committed. We like to get plugged in and stay working at something. And he was really looking for a place that he could basically spend his whole ministry building into. And when his professor talked to him about this church, everything that they wanted to do seemed to be the things that God had laid on his heart.
That's amazing. And God just he moved all the barriers too, like that
Yeah.
one barrier you
Yep.
thought, and
Yep.
Matt being dumb and wanting to call somebody and cancel and
Yeah, no,
all
right.
that stuff. So speaking of Matt being dumb, I think let's talk about
easy.
about what the inquiring minds want to know. What is the single dumbest thing you've ever said from the pulpit?
I thought we previewed these questions. Okay, so I will recall a marriage series. In fact, Terry probably remembers several. So, so I had this tease thing at home that Terry wanted to lose some weight, and so we're trying to cut down on portion size and not eat everything on the plate. So she...
I already see where this is going. It's not good.
She'd have some on the plate, and she said, I probably ought to stop eating. And I said, yep, let's just go ahead and throw it away. Look, it'll look better in there than it will on you. So I got the same response when I said that in the sermon,
Every
so
woman in the cafeteria.
all the oxygen was sucked out of the room when I said that. So that was among the stupidest things I've ever said.
And I bet everybody's looking at Terry like, Ann, what do you think about that comment? So, and I warned Terry that I was going to throw this at her this morning, but I don't know if you had a chance to think. But we all know that Terry is sitting over here every Sunday cheering for Matt. She's hoping that he's going to do something. And I know there are moments where you probably went, oh, no, he said that. Oh, no. And what is a moment that you can think of where you went, oh, Matt, no?
There are times, yes, I can remember
So there are many.
times when
Okay.
I felt that way, but it's hard to remember a specific thing that he said.
There's so many.
But
She couldn't figure out which one.
one of the things is that every once in a while, Matt likes to joke. His dad was a big jokester. And so once in a while, he'll tell a joke if he gets a big response. it just eggs him on. And I'm like, oh, baby, quit while you're ahead. Because he'll just keep talking and see if he can get another laugh.
You got the laugh. Stop. Yeah, that's funny. So what is, going back to kind of the beginnings and really just the reality in church, what would you say in the early days? What are your thoughts about the scariest moment of starting a new church? And maybe it was going, and then there was this real scary moment of like, I don't know if this is going to work.
Well, the scary moment, our first public service was actually our third service. We started at Hawks Rise, and I had worshipped in the previous church in a university campus, so it was more natural for me. But nobody else had ever worshipped in a school cafeteria. So we wanted to set up all the audio equipment. We had to haul in all the kids' toys and everything. So we did that, and we did 2 services to practice. And then our first public service was on, I think, September 22nd of 96. So we had sent out 5,000 cards, and you just wonder if anybody's going to show up. So that was the most scary moment to begin with. We've done all this, we prayed about this, we've moved our family of 6 down here. We're here, we're committed. And honestly, they were paying, I took a big cut to come here, and they were paying me more than the whole budget had ever been for the church. So I knew it's going to make it or it's not, so is anybody going to show up? So we had 80 that first day. It was twice the number in the church. And so I knew then, okay, it's gonna work.
Awesome. So God worked right away again.
Yeah, he did.
That's amazing.
Yep.
I'm sure the answer is no, but have you ever made any mistakes?
Oh, yeah.
What would you say is one of the biggest mistakes you look back and go, oh, man, but what did God do through it, right?
Yeah, so I had a tendency, and I don't have as much of a tendency to do this now as I used to because I've done it enough times and been shamed for doing it, but I tend to do things too quickly. I have an idea, and it's just, okay, we just need to do it tomorrow. Let's don't wait. This is the right thing to do. And so I remember one particular year, this was in the mid-2000s, and we made 3 big decisions all of a sudden. This was in the fall, and no, it was in February. We made decisions in February, and it was just too quick. And we made all 3 of these big decisions. And I said, we need to do this now. It's the right thing to do. So we did it. And not all of the leaders knew about it when we made the decision. So they're finding out about it at church. They're finding out about it in the newsletter. That was the dumbest thing. And people left over that, including the leader of our administrative ministers team. So our lead elder left over that. And I just felt so bad about that because even though it was the right decision, and I think everybody knew it was the right decision, it was the timing. And I heard somebody say several years ago that the difference between a 500-yard home run and a 500-foot home run and a 500-foot foul ball is timing. It can be the right thing to do, but just the wrong timing. So, and I've done that a few times, and I try now to make sure that all the leaders are on board and understand what we're doing. You rarely have unanimity about big decisions, but you want everybody to have had input in that and then make the decision and then make sure that leaders know first. They're not finding out about it. Oh, I didn't know that when you announce it from the pulpit. That's just really, really bad. It disrespects people.
Right. Any thoughts from you, Terry, on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's something, that's part of my job is to say, have you checked with everybody? Are you, is everybody, how are they feeling about this? And
okay, so I'll tell you something else. This actually worked out, but it was...
Now it's going to get the real story.
No. Okay, so we were at the school, and we've been at the school for 5.5 years, and we had found this property and purchased a property, and we didn't have plans, but we had an architect's rendering, kind of a sort of a master plan of what we want to do here. So we took that with some estimates for what it would take to build the building. to banks, and we shopped the banks, and we got 7 no's in a row. And, you know, we knew God wanted us to build here. It just wasn't the right time, I guess. So we went back and we cut our budget because we weren't breaking even at that time. But we were planning on growing, you know, so we just couldn't understand why they didn't see that. So we worked at it for 8 months, and we were in the black. And we went back and shopped, and 2 banks said yes. It was Premier Bank, that's no longer here. They've been merged, and Farmers and Merchants Bank is now the first. And Farmers and Merchants made us the best deal. And our budget at that time was running about $300,000, and we wanted to borrow $1.5 million. And they said yes. And they just, I will always be respectful of Don May and the folks that went out on a limb for us. And we did a capital campaign. In our capital campaign, no joke, our capital campaign, the purpose of the campaign was to raise enough money to service the debt for 3 years. Then it was done. And we're 20-year loan. So we got pledges of $450,000, and we were just going to pay the debt for 3 years, and then by then we would have been big enough that we could pay it ourselves. That was the plan. Anybody tells me that's going to be their plan, I say that's a dumb plan. But it was a God plan. It was one of those just crazy faith stretches, and God did it. And at the end of 3 years, we were barely able to make the payments, and nobody missed a paycheck. Wow. It was just pretty amazing.
And look where we are now. That's great.
Yeah,
now we're debt free.
And now we're debt free.
Yeah.
And just a addendum, because it's important to make those faith steps, but to make them in a considered way, because you can't do it too fast, because you might not be sure that's where God's leading. But when we are sure that that's where He's leading, that's the time to go for it, and that's what we did as a church.
Yeah, that's awesome, and amazing what God did at that moment too. He moved hearts of the bank. He moved. I mean, that's huge. So, kind of on that same vein of you were saying that some people got hurt and were bothered by it and all those kinds of things. Everybody knows. I mean, we'll talk real here, right? Real people, real church, real change. That's what we talk about at Canby Roads. So whenever you, as a new pastor starting a new church, getting it growing, and you're trying to grow over time, and God is moving and doing amazing things like we just talked about, I'm sure there are times, though, where there was some serious hurt and maybe some pain. Maybe it's a personal story for you. Maybe it's just a story that happened in the church. So where was a moment where you felt like, wow, there was some real hurt here, but God worked through it and made good things happen? Yeah,
and I'd say this was maybe the scariest time for me, and in a time that was very emotional. We were 2.5 years into the church plant, and I'll tell you the whole story. We had transitioned from a piano and a praise team. We left the organ in the other church. I told them we can't take the organ because we can't set it up every week at Hawks Rise Elementary, so we killed the organ. I mean, we left the organ there. So we moved with the piano, electric piano, and in a ensemble, basically. So we're moving from very traditional to kind of contemporary. Then we transitioned to a band, and I had a meeting with the band in February of that year, and every week they would do a special. And so I counted the specials they'd done. They'd only done 9 different specials in 52 weeks. So I tried to challenge them. I said, guys, that's good. You guys do a great job, but we can do better. You've only done 9 different specials. Let's try to do a special every week, something different. Let's work it up and do something different. The band resigned on the spot at the meeting, except for the worship leader. So this was in February. We were looking for our second staff member, Eddie Poole, so we decided he's the one. So we brought him in for a call weekend in the end of April, And the worship leader continued to lead during that time. He hadn't resigned, but everybody, all the team did, so we had to enlist a new team. At the end of that service, I had no idea this was coming. He stood up and gave a 10-minute resignation speech at the end of the service. Oh, man. And there's Eddie coming in
Here
view
for a
of a call.
visit weekend.
I said, I was thinking to myself, I was dying 1,000 deaths. I mean, it's not bad, but it's just the timing of it was just terrible. And I said, there's no way he's going to come here. But he did come here. And over the course of the next 18 months, we had about 90 people leave the church. We were running 150 at the time. But there were people coming in as fast as there were people leaving. And that was agonizing. Friends, people in the original core group, people that we had spent a lot of time with, and they've been in our house. All three of our two oldest girls lost their best friends. Their best friends' families left during that time. And that's always been the most difficult part of church life.
Yeah, and I think anybody who's in ministry would probably tell you that, especially if you stay somewhere a long time, is the people that leave, because you do form relationships, and it's family. And it's, Matt said a lot of times, it's really like a divorce. It's hard.
Yeah, that's definitely the hardest thing. And I wondered if we were going to make it. I wondered if we were going to fold up. And, so I had a really long prayer time on the way back from a church meeting in Ocala, Orlando. And God just said, you're going to be okay. And he gave me a couple of verses in Hebrews 10, 35 and 36, which says, so do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. You need to persevere so that when you've done the will of God, you receive what he's promised.
And Eddie was really kind of the answer
to
that, because he added something that we needed to move forward.
It was huge. It was just a time of transition. And over the course of time, I've come to understand that we are where we are for a season, and God uses us where we are if we'll be used by him. And God used and blessed his kingdom, blessed our church with those people for their investment, however long it was. And that was really cool. It really helped me to understand that, I'm not driving this thing. I'm not pulling the levers. God is, and he can move people whenever he wants to.
It's amazing. He puts the right people in the right place at the right time, right?
He does.
So that's just, what he's done since then, and that's amazing. Yeah.
It's amazing.
And speaking of that, I mean, we have, we actually reached out to a few folks that, some friends that have been here and gone different places. And I wanted to be able to tell you on that note, just like somebody who after that came years later and then had seen some amazing things happen at Canopy Roads and has some real hope for the future as well. So if you wouldn't mind, play that video up there.
Well, hello, Canopy Roads Baptist Church. I'm so excited to get a chance to share with you and to be with you. I mean, it seems like just yesterday we were celebrating the 20th anniversary of Canopy Roads Baptist Church. And now look, we get to celebrate the 25th anniversary. It's so exciting to see how God has continued to use Canopy Roads. And I'm just excited to be a part of its story. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Brad Courtney. I was one of the pastors there from 2008 to 2017, and I had a chance to serve as a student pastor and associate pastor, and I gotta tell you, those were some amazing years of ministry. I think back to what God did over the course of those years. We got to see new buildings built, the buildings back in the back, and the renovation of the worship center and those classrooms, and I tell you, those were some amazing times in ministry. Canopy Roads has a special place in my heart, not just because I serve there, but because my wife got a chance to serve in student ministry there, and she was heavily involved with Terry Hall, with the student ministry and the leadership there. And both my kids, Lydia and Will, were both born while we were serving on staff there. Canopy Roads is a very, very special place, and it will be a place that we always cherish forever as a place that we just got to see God do some incredible things. I'll tell you though, looking right now in the present, I've been watching you guys. It's so neat to see how God has continued to bless the church and continue to use you to to serve and just do incredible things there in Tallahassee. But you know, the future is still to come. And I can say with complete confidence that I am so excited to see what God does through this church, through Canopy Roads Baptist Church in the future. Listen, I'm excited. I know God's got some incredible things for the future. Keep on pressing on. Let's see what God does. I'm excited that I was part of the story, and know that we continue to pray for you. And we look forward to seeing what God does in the next 5, 10, 20 years down the road.
You know, so Brad was kind enough to do that for us, and he was excited about it. And it's so cool to see. So you were talking about how different people came at different times. It's also cool to see who God has sent out from Canopy Roads, and now he's a pastor at Stetson Baptist, and just continues to grow and do cool things there. It's really cool just to see what God has done and who he's sent out from Canopy over the years. So talking about the future, he mentioned a lot about the future. So you know, what is the most exciting things you see on the horizon for Canopy Roads now?
Well, I think that, you know, one thing, we're debt-free, which we'd never been in that position. We'd always been in a financial challenging situation. So,
by the way, another thing worth celebrating, everybody, right?
yeah. So I'm excited about the opportunities that provides for us. And I just, you know, we began as a church focused on reaching unchurched people, reaching out. And, you know, when you begin a church, you begin with a missionary spirit. You feel like, you know, I'm here and I want to make a difference in the kingdom. I don't want to just, you know, attract people from other churches. That's not why we're here. We're here to reach people who are lost. Reach people who maybe they used to be in church and now they're not, or maybe they know about God, but they haven't trusted Christ and become a Christ follower. So that was part of our DNA in the beginning, and we were passionate and aggressive about that.
And those first years in the school were really exciting because everybody was necessary, because we were having to pull out chairs every Sunday. We had to set up all the classrooms for kids. We had to tear it all down afterwards, and everybody had a job to do. When we first moved into this building, everybody was excited. It was wonderful, but honestly, people, including myself, we kind of wandered around saying, okay, what do we do now? Because the chairs stay set up.
We used to stack chairs. First time guests would stack chairs. You know, it's like they were needed.
Yeah, and so it's to stay focused on the mission. All of a sudden, you know, we had to change, and it was tough.
So what you're saying is we're going to start stacking chairs every Sunday now.
Yeah.
We're going to start pulling them out so everybody's engaged.
I think we're recovering that missionary spirit,
Yeah.
which is what Jesus wants for all of us. You know, he wants us to live sent on mission, and so I'm excited about that. I think that's our future, is becoming a church of missionaries, where that's who we are, and so I think that is in the early days. We did reach out like that, but we kind of had this mindset. We want people to come here. And that was kind of the way we did church back in those days. You know, it was an attractional kind of thing. Go out and get people and bring them here.
Yeah, we would do community events, but the goal was to get them to come.
Yeah. And I see our future as trying to get people here out there.
Yeah. And that's really more like the first century church. And I'm actually doing the Live Sent class with Justin right now, and in our first class we were talking about how kind of the attitudes changed. That the first century, everybody understood that they were missionaries, and that's why Christianity exploded. We want to see it explode again for the same reason, because all of us understand we're missionaries.
So I think you answered one of my last questions. There was going to be, what advice would you give us as members of Canopy Roads that we have to do to complete God's mission here at Canopy Roads?
I would say one of the things that's been most helpful for me over the years is the verse I shared earlier. Don't throw away your confidence. God has called us here for a mission, and we go through ebbs and flows in life, in our personal lives, you know, challenges, and you know, nobody who got divorced planned on divorce when they were standing at the wedding altar. Nobody planned on losing a kid. Nobody planned on getting addicted to drugs or alcohol. Nobody planned on having a wreck and having their, you know, physical body messed up and difficult to deal with for the rest of their lives. Nobody planned on going through bankruptcy. Nobody planned on flunking out of school. Those things are part of life. And when God gives you a vision, you're going to have to stick with it. And just stick with it. Don't ever, 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 ever give up. As Winston Churchill told, the English when they were in the grips of Nazi advance and London was burning, he says, never, 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 never give up. And Jesus says, do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. God has each of you here for a purpose, and it's his purpose. And sometimes his purpose may seem out of reach, that I just can't do that. I can't be that person. I can't go there. Yes, you can.
Because that's when it's a God thing. That's when God's helping you. If it's something you can do on your own, sometimes you forget that God's there for you.
Yeah, and the easy thing is to say, okay, I just won't do that. I'll do something easier. No, do the hard thing. Do the thing that God placed on your heart and go after it. Give it all you've got. And you want to be able to look back 25 years from now and say, yes, I made some mistakes and there were some hard knocks along the way, but I'm so glad I didn't give up. I'm so glad I trusted Jesus, because it's God who does the work through us. It's not our smarts and our good looks and our charm and our charisma. It's Jesus working through us that does that. He can even do stuff with us. And it's just amazing.
When Matt and I were talking about these questions and this particular idea, it brought to mind for me the hardest class I ever had in college. And it was when I was taking my master's. I actually had the class physical chemistry. Well, there is no chemistry. I love chemistry, but there is very little chemistry. It was all physics and calculus, and it was like the hardest class I ever attempted. But I remember walking out of that exam after going through that class, and it was like, yes, I answered every question. I know I passed that exam. And I've had that same feeling when we do something that looked hard that I know God was telling us to do.
That's awesome. That's good advice.
Yes, it's the same feeling that we had in December of 2020 when we paid the debt off.
Yeah.
$1.3 million in 3 years. It's just absolutely amazing. And after we
it seemed impossible.
Been in a capital campaign for the 3 previous years. People said that kind of stuff doesn't happen. Yes, it does. If God says do it and you do your part, you just be obedient. So go after it.
So you said in 25 years, and we're looking back. So besides the fact that you guys are still pastors here 25 years from now, looking back, what would you think in 25 years, what's your hope that you see of Canopy Roads in 25 years? Another 25 years.
I hope that the reputation in the community is that Canopy Roads loves the people here. They love the people in Tallahassee and everywhere else a church has been planted out of Canopy Roads. I see us planting other churches and other sites, micro churches or whatever it takes to reach people. And I see them understanding, and maybe even some vocabulary has changed in the secular community. This living sent thing is kind of cool. This is a church that lives sent.
And they really
and
do
I
what
like
they
the
say.
living sent. I don't know quite about Jesus yet, but I like this living sent thing. That's what our country needs. We need to live sent with each other. Yeah. We need to see people as Jesus sees them. And we need to eat together and have conversation and not just exchange verbal jabs over social media. We need to have a sit down with each other and get to know each other. And we need to be good Samaritans with each other, good neighbors. Everybody loves a good neighbor. Yeah. And we just need to be that neighbor. And in the process of that, talk to people about the person who matters most to you, Lord Jesus. So I just envision 25 years from now that being something that is said about Canopy Roads just in the community. This is a church that lives sent with their neighbors. They love their neighbors and they live sent. And people who were far from God loved Jesus. They respected Jesus. And I think if we live sent, that's being like Jesus. People won't necessarily love us all the time, but they'll respect that we care about them. And that's good enough.
Awesome. So Matt and Terry don't know this, but we actually have something we want to reflect the fact that you guys know how rare it is to have a church that was not only started but continues to grow and change vision over the years. by one pastoral family, right? 25 years. And I think Matt deserves, and Terry deserves the biggest hand we can give them. And we have a gift for them for 25 years at Canopy Roads and how awesome they are as well.
Thank you, Caitlin. Thanks, Jonathan.
All right, and we do have one more message from a long-lost friend.
Hey Canopy Roads, I'm so excited, 25 years, your 25th anniversary. That's totally cool. I'm Eddie Poole. I was at Canopy Roads 24 years ago, and I was there for about 6.5 years serving the Lord there in Tallahassee with some of you guys. I'm really happy for that 25 years has gone by. I want to tell you, in the years that I served, I love getting to know your pastor and my friend Matt Hall. I've served with a lot of people over the years. I can tell you there's nobody that I respect more than Matt. One reason that I really appreciate Matt is that everything he does, his whole entire agenda is to lift up Jesus. And that's pretty cool and a great example for all of us. And also Matt prays like crazy. He really taught me how to lift up my game as far as prayer goes. So I know that I'm blessed to know Matt, and you guys are blessed to have Matt as a leading Canopy Roads for the past 25 years. What do I think God is going to do through Canopy Roads in the next 25 years? I think it's going to be even greater than it has in the past. I think you're going to have more stories about people that have been reached for Christ. And probably some of you sitting out there listening to me right now are some of those stories in the past. But I look for a lot more stories in the future than we've had in the past. And I say we because I still feel like Canopy Roads is a part of me. As the world gets darker, and we both know it's growing darker, I see the light of Christ shining brighter and brighter, and I see Canopy Roads shining brighter and brighter there in Tallahassee. I encourage you, don't just live like you're trying to get to the next day. Live with the purpose in life. God has called us all to live sin. In John 20, Jesus told his disciples, just as the Father called me, so I'm calling you. And I believe that's not just for the 12 disciples back then, that's for us too. God has called us to live sin. Jesus lived the perfect life. He was crucified, he was put in the tomb, but then he blew death wide open when he came out of that tomb. And he made life possible for us so that we can be with the Father. That's something to get excited about, and that's the hope that we have. What do I see for Canopy Roads in the next 25 years? I see even greater things for God. I see people praying more than you've ever prayed before and praying for the lost. I see people inviting their neighbors over and investing in the neighbors so that when they're ready to hear about Christ, you'll be in a position to do that. You know your neighbors are going to have a hard time believing that you want them in heaven if you don't want them in your living room. So I encourage you, invest in your neighbors, get to know them. I encourage you, take Jesus to work with you. Take him to the ballpark with you. Everywhere that you go, live your faith out. Live your faith when nobody's looking. Canopy Roads, we don't just go to church, we are the church, and we exist for the world and for Tallahassee. I'm so proud of everything that's happened in Tallahassee and with Canopy Roads. Look for greatness in the future. Let's go out there and live sent, live for God, give God our whole heart and our whole life, and let's go.
I love Eddie's line there. That's a great big idea. Your neighbor will have trouble believing you want them in heaven if you don't want them in your living room. Yeah. You got to eat with people. That's cool. So today you should have received a special coin that we had minted for this occasion, challenge coin. It's our Live Sent coin. So I hope that you will take this coin with you. If you're a guest this morning, it's our gift to you as well. And the purpose of this is to remind you that if you're a follower of Jesus, you're a missionary. Because Jesus said to his disciples, he says, as the Father has sent me, even so I am sending you. So people that are sent on a mission are missionaries. So we're all missionaries. Missionaries are not just people who serve in foreign countries. Missionaries are people who follow Jesus. If we follow Jesus, we will live on his mission. So every day I pick this thing up off of my dresser and put it in my pocket as a reminder, I'm a missionary. I just happen to work at a church. I haven't always worked at a church, but I've been on missions when I was working at a bank, when I was going to school or in graduate school, working on a degree there. I I was a missionary. You're a missionary, whatever you're doing. So let this remind you, this is our missional acronym. This is what it means to be a missionary. What it means is it's not some complicated thing. It's not, you don't have to go to seminary. You don't have to sell everything you own and move to Africa or China. You have to live sent. See people the way Jesus sees people. Everybody matters. And just look at the people you meet and bring Jesus into every room where you go. That's something that Eddie said in his book. I think I mentioned that last week. He's just written a book, and it's an incredible book. And he says, every time you go into a room, you have an opportunity to bring Jesus into that room and speak life there. So see people as Jesus sees them. Eat with people. Develop hospitality. Invite people to your house. Take people out for coffee. And have some special conversations where you begin to build genuine relationships with people. And then be a good neighbor people. And most important of all, look for opportunities to talk about the person who has saved you from your sins and given you the gift of eternal life. Talk to people about Jesus. So take this coin and let it be a challenge for you to be a missionary. Pick it up, put it in your purse, in your pocket or whatever, and every day ask God, give me someone today to live sent with, and see what God does. I think God will do some amazing things in our lives as we become a church of missionaries.
Well, we hope this video was encouraging to you, and if you found it valuable, go ahead and hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed to our channel already, we'd invite you to do that. That way you don't miss any of this content that we put out on a weekly basis. And if you feel led to do so, we'd encourage you to share it with a friend. You know, here at Canopy Roads Baptist Church, we are on mission, and that mission is to develop fully devoted followers of Christ. If you'd like to partner with us in that mission, I want to give you 2 quick and easy ways that you can do that. Number 1, you can go directly to our website at canopyroads.org/giving, or number 2, simply scroll down in the description and click on the link that's there. Again, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you back here next week.